Hey, how are you? Let's see if you're coming on. Hey, Doug. You want a seat? If you can. Yay.
Hello.
Hey, Doug. Susie's not coming on.
No, sorry. I've just come back from the beach. I haven't even had a shower. Look at me.
Doug, Susie, do you guys know each other?
No,
I do not. How you doing?
Hi, Doug.
Hey,
And
nice to meet you.
Hi, Michelle. I just thought before I go off, I'm just going to see who's on Blab in the self-improvement thing, and I showed Michelle's name, and she didn't have anybody there, and I thought I must come and say hi.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen you.
Yeah.
The sound is not coming through my headphones, which is so interesting. Are you getting feedback, Doug?
No.
Okay, well, I'm going to take off my headphones then. Since my sound isn't coming through them, what's the point, right?
You know what's funny is that my actually I don't know if this is working at all either. I don't know if my headphones are actually working.
Okay, so Susie, hi. Are you in Australia? You're in Australia, right?
I'm in Australia. It's just spring. It's spring. I've just come back from the beach, and unfortunately, it's a grey day. But I looked at your topic, what's important to you? And I was walking along the beach and I thought, okay, some days are grey. They're not always, the sun isn't always shining. But there was so much to be grateful for. You know, the wind was blowing us along. We were walking in the sand. I'm in bare feet. You hear the sound of the waves. And the beach is almost deserted. And I live in a tourist area. So, yeah, I was just thinking those sorts of things. And gratitude are things that are really important to me. And as Michelle probably knows, my health is really how I look after myself and give myself me time is really important to me.
So let me ask you something, because Doug and I have been like digging really deep the last few days into like what's important. So that's really cool about what's important for you personally and how you go through life and how you hold your center. Tell me what's important to you that you think needs changing in the world right now.
What needs changing in the world? Well, I think my message is about positivity and love. And one of the things that I think is really important in the world right now, because we've had some really dreadful incidents in the state where I live just this week. It's been, very depressing. But my thing, what's really important, and I talked about this on the beach yesterday with my partner Des, and is if we started teaching love, or children come into the world full of love, but somehow it gets dispersed out and we don't encourage that. But if we had a world full of love and we were like a mentor of mine that's just passed, Wayne Dyer, I'm just reading his memoir. And he was like, he was born into this world to be positive, to see the good, even though he had lots of challenges. But somehow I think we have to take this back into parents, and we have to start at a really young age at schools. And I used to be a preschool teacher. And I think, what we teach kids when they're 2 and 3 and 4, and we keep going through with that, that's how we can change the world. And that's what the Dalai Lama says and a lot of other things.
So what do you think is going to be happening with this wave of children in Africa, Syria, parts of the U.S., maybe even parts of Australia, I don't know, all over the world, this wave of children who've had huge trauma in their life? How's that going to affect the world in 20 years from now?
I have to say it's something I haven't actually thought about. But what instantly came to my mind was there's a woman called Brandon Bays who's done so much work with children and really in South Africa, where there are a lot of the children, and what's the work that's been done in schools with traumatized children has created huge change. So the resources are out there, and I'm of a belief at the moment we are in they're saying we're moving into the age of Aquarius. We're in an age where things are changing and systems are breaking down. So they're the things that I believe need to happen for those sorts of children.
That would be awesome if we had resources. I'm a little worried we won't have enough resources, but I love the idea of spreading love. I just would like to know how to do that in a way that's really going to make a difference. And I know you, Susie, it's like we have to start where we are, right?
You have to start. I mean, I've had a huge journey of, I've been working with personal development and self-love for years, and I got hit down and I was told my message was to really love me. And if we don't start within, and we don't teach children to start within, that we teach them how, you see a lot of them nowadays, they learn without, it's very hard.
It's hard. And a lot of kids coming up. I mean, there's obviously lots of healthy children and adults in the world, but right now I'm concerned about the ones that are going through so much trauma. I see Chana.
Yeah.
You know her, Doug?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to grab a seat? Join the conversation? Feel free. This is a free for all. Doug, what do you have to say about this subject?
I think what's really important to me is that we now use the technology that we have. We have all this great technology, and to really listen and hear each other's stories, because I think love is important, but there's also what's called structural violence. You know, there's real structural violence in the world, which is like, basically we all pretty much participate. I mean, all of us are participating in it, because if you live in the world, you can't help but participate in it, in a system that basically crushes down 2/3 of the human race. You know, so
I disagree. I don't agree.
I think
you have a choice.
We all participate in the evils of the world, regardless of whether we like to think so or not. I don't think you can.
But you don't have to focus on it.
What's that?
See, you don't have to focus on it. If you choose to talk about it, you're focusing on it.
No, I totally disagree with you. I totally disagree with you. I teach social policy and social welfare. I think that that's a real mistake, because if we don't focus on it and we don't talk about it, I mean, if somebody is starving and we're not giving them food, or we're not giving them access to resources, and you say, this is not right, we're oppressing people, I don't think to talk about it isn't negativity. To talk about it is the beginning of a conversation. I don't think
I agree with it from that, but I don't think we need to use negative language in any form.
I disagree completely.
Okay, that's fine.
But I mean, I still like it.
We all have our own opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Chichana. Welcome. Thanks for grabbing a seat.
Hello.
Hi. Do you have something to add to the mix here? Have you been listening all along?
I have been listening in and out. So I hear you guys talking about what's important to you. And Susie started out talking about self-love. And I am kind of in the same thing. My shtick, what I'm obsessed about, what is important to me is confidence. Women in confidence, helping them be more confident. Together. So I am like obsessed with the women confidence and the gap in between and how to close that gap. And I'm kind of along with Doug, but saying maybe not the word focusing, but realizing or paying attention that some things, like when I work with women talking about their body, how they love their body, I start with, okay, tell me what you don't like about it. What are we focusing on? How is that helping you? So that's just what I don't know what else I was going to say about that, but that's what I want to contribute to the conversation right now.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I do think there's something too about acknowledging what is, and whether we're using a negative word or a positive word, I don't have thoughts about that at this moment, but I think you have to acknowledge and be real and truthful about what is in order to be able to come into a healthy space of change. And if we pretend that, and I'm not for a minute suggesting this was what was said earlier, I'm just speaking from my heart right now. If we pretend that there aren't horrible things happening in the world, we're sort of sticking our head in the sand. And I see lots of conversations going on that are sort of skirting around the issue, or where a lot of anger comes up. And Doug, you know, I was involved in one of those yesterday, a lot of anger. And it's like, wait a minute, we need to be able to talk it out. If we can't even just talk it out amongst ourselves, how are we going to ever address all the negativity and the hatred and what's going on across the world?
And I don't think of it as, and Susie, you said something I really loved about, you know, telling stories is so important. To me, it's not about, I don't see it as negative or positive. It's more like we have an opportunity with these technologies to actually, I mean, imagine if, for example, there's this whole thing about Iran right now, you know, and we think of Iran as just this giant thing that's going to, you know, create nuclear holocaust in the world. I mean, that's one of the narratives about Iran, right? But yet Iran is also a tremendously culturally diverse. I mean, it's not even like there's one Iran, right? There's, and what if we were able to really hear people's voices and stories, you know, the lived experiences. You know, I don't know what the lived experience of somebody in, you know, in Iran is. I have no idea, you know. And so I guess one of the things I'm passionate about is the idea that part of change can happen because for the first time ever in human existence, I mean, if governments and if technology allowed us, we could actually get to know each other in a deeper way beyond, I mean, people used to never, you wouldn't know someone beyond your little town. You could just grow up and never get beyond your town. You
and now look at us.
What's that?
Now look at us.
And now look at us.
Us. Just
I know. So what are we going to do with this technology? Are we going to use it? I'm saying this as much for myself. Are we going to use it to talk about, you know, do you want to use MailChimp or Aweber? Right? Or are we going to, or, you know, I really think there's an opportunity to, so if somebody is suffering and for them to be able to share their story and me to hear that, like that, I don't, and I'm not saying this has anything to do with said before, but just I'm thinking, I don't see that as a negative. And if I can see that I play a role in that, that I play a role in that, not because I'm a bad person, but because that's the circumstance in my life that I play a role in that, then at least that gets me thinking.
Brandon from Humans of New York, I think, has done more to elevate the world and parts of the world that we don't see. I think 150 million people like his Facebook page. And if anyone listening, if you guys don't know him, go to Humans of New York on Facebook. He did a whole series through Pakistan where we really got to know through photos in 2 or 3 sentences sometimes, and sometimes longer paragraphs, very specific individual stories. And then he went to Iran. Now he's back in New York. I believe he's opened the world to millions of people and how to really view the world. Are you Chachana? Is that your name?
Shoshana.
Shoshana. Yeah, I love the cha-cha. Where are you, Shoshana?
I have to go.
Bye, Susie.
Great to meet you, Susie.
Anyone else want to grab the seat? Bye, Susie. Where are you, Shoshana?
I am in the great state of Connecticut.
Oh, nice.
Oh, we're not far. We're in Connecticut.
And Norwalk.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So you're like 45.
Is that kind of middle?
No, that's more closer towards the New York side, New York City.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
We're like an hour away from each other.
Oh, cool.
I'm from the Berkshires.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's got to be pretty close, right?
Yep.
I believe it's not too far either.
Yeah.
No,
Nice. So what do you care about women and self-improvement? What about what's going on in the world? You want to like dig into that, attack the world problems here?
Attack the world problems. There are so many.
Yeah, aren't there? Pick and choose, Shoshana. Where do you want to start?
Along the lines of what Doug was saying, like how we're going to use this how we're going to use this platform, and you were saying how you were, I don't know what conversation you were in, and people are getting angry. It's just, it would be nice if we could start having that conversation without people taking it personally if you don't agree with their position. And I think that is really a major problem globally, because it says that if you don't agree with what I say, then you're wrong, and we have nothing to talk about. And I'm just going to yell and scream over you until you hear me or you stop talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Or try to bully you into your way of thinking, and that's like middle school stuff, right? And it's like we haven't worked out our personal issues. Doug, you said something the other day about often our growth comes from our woundedness.
Yeah.
I don't remember where we were talking. Maybe it was on a Blab.
Yeah,
and,
it was, yeah.
You know, if we stick in our woundedness, we never can grow from it. We're always coming from that place of being angry or bitter or yelling or trying to be right. And that's what concerns me about all these millions of children all over the world that are going through such hardship. And are they going to have the resources, like Susie's talking about, to be able to heal some of that? Maybe. Let's hope.
And let's acknowledge that, you know, the other piece I think is like, we're so, you know, we get so caught up in the political discourse of right and left. And, you know, there are good ideas on the right and there are good ideas on the left, and there are bad ideas on the right and there are bad ideas on the left. And, you know, who gets to decide what's good or bad? But like, can we agree that? What's that?
I was making a joke. Go ahead.
Oh, I totally missed it. But can we agree that we, you know, can we at least, I really, and I say, like, the question is what's important to you? And I don't pretend that what's important to me is the most important thing in the world. It's just what's important to me, right? But I think we all have to come at the world in some angle of, it's like what brings us joy and what the world needs, and then that intersection. I really do think that if we could just get to listen to each other more deeply and more people could feel heard, I think that at least we could start thinking about what are the solutions to these problems.
Doug, question. What do you mean by listen or hear more deeply?
Okay, so an example of that would be, how cool would it be, how amazing would it be if in police departments, if a black man and a white police officer could sit down with each other and have a real conversation where the white officer could say, I can understand how it feels like you lose your dignity every time you go outside. Mm-hmm. And you see what I'm saying? And then at the same time, if the other person is be able to say, I'm terrified, if that police officer was to be able to say, I'm terrified that I'm going to be shot and killed every time I put on this uniform because people don't see me as a person anymore. They see me as a symbol of something. So what I mean by more deeply is the stories that we don't tell, the things that we don't say, and the things that we don't the stories, I guess, that are untold, that we don't say to each other.
Okay. And it's brave to even have that conversation because it's so heated right now in the U.S.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not for me to be able to say. I mean, I say this to my students, to my undergrad students. As a white male, I get a whole lot of social currency that Shoshana you don't get, right? Or even Michelle you don't get as a woman, right? I love telling a story about I was pulled over. Oh my gosh, this was like last year. I was just having a bad day, and I just went right through a red light. I mean, I went through right through a red light where there was a police car in front of the red light. So
oh my gosh!
What a bad day I was having. And I don't know. It was not a not a major intersection, but I just blew right through it. And the cop put the thing on. He gets over. He says, "You know, I pulled you over." I was like, "You know what? Just give me the ticket." I was like, "I'm not going to fight with you." I clearly, you saw me go through a red light. And he goes, well, don't worry. We all have bad days. He goes, I'm sure you probably have a clean driving record. He goes, let me just check. So so immediately, what does he give me? The benefit of the doubt, right? Mm-hmm. In a way, and what did I do to earn that benefit of the doubt? Nothing, right? And he went back, and it's true. I hadn't had a ticket in 7 years. But what he didn't know is in the last 2 years, I got 2 other warnings where they said, well, just, keep it easy. So I could have easily had 2 more tickets. And so you see how each benefit just accrues upon the other, right? And I was glad that I didn't get that ticket. But, we don't go around telling those stories.
Right, because then it highlights the differences that I mean, I don't know, but I don't think it's just racial. It can be what you're wearing. It can be what
Class,
part of town you're driving through. It can be racial. It can be
class
so
too.
many things, right?
Gender was
Sometimes
a big
women
part of it.
can
I
get
think.
away with more when they get stopped, right? I mean, I wouldn't know that anymore, but I think that was true for me a few years ago. But it's an interesting conversation because I don't think anyone intentionally sets out to have judgments about people, good or bad, or like give people the benefit of the doubt, but it's sort of ingrained in us in a society. And so some people are privileged, some people are less privileged. And then what happens when all the refugees come in from different parts of the world? And then how do we look at these people?
Right.
And do we have judgments?
And doesn't it always start with, this is how I feel. This is why I'm so big on stories and individual stories, because the first step towards oppressing people is to lump them into a giant group together. Mm-hmm. So you dehumanize people by lumping them into a group and using terms like animal or, dehumanizing language. So the more you can lump people together into a single narrative, the easier it is to dehumanize and oppress them. And the more, conversely, I think, the more we hear actual stories, because it's like the little boy in Syria who drowned. People had a lot of compassion. Why? Because that was an individual story about a boy.
Right. And that's true with what's happening mostly in the South, but all over the U.S. right now. People getting shot, young men, black men getting shot, cops getting shot, white cops getting shot. But when we start hearing about individual stories, it brings it to light, and we have compassion for all sides of the story as individuals.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess that's what I meant by we're all complicit in the evils of the world. I didn't mean that we're all evil. I just mean that it's kind of like the Eastern, like, it's the yin and the yang. Like, we can't, that there's no, there are, I guess, like Hitlers in the world, there have been people in history who are just pretty hard to find the good stuff. But most of us are not, what the heck, am I like the world's greatest humanitarian? I mean, I think that what I mean is that it's much more complicated. I don't mean it as a negative, that's not how I intended it.
Yeah, I think it's very complicated.
Yeah, it's just not just one's right, like wrong or anything. It's just we're all complex people. So when it comes to judgments, we all have our own type of judgment, and it's not on purpose. I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, I got an echo there. If I can fix it on my end.
Oh.
You guys talk amongst yourselves.
Are you getting you're getting an echo? I'm actually not.
I'm getting it. I'm getting an echo.
Are you getting an echo when you hear yourself, or me, or both?
When I hear myself and when I hear Michelle. And it just started to happen. Okay, but I'll work through it.
Okay, that's weird. Yeah, no, I'm not hearing an echo on my side. Are you hearing an echo, Michelle?
Just started.
Okay. As a white male, I'm not going to hear an echo. It's part of my privilege.
Oh my goodness.
One of the things that we don't acknowledge too, and this is another thing that I think is great about stories, that life is hard. And I don't mean that life, like, I don't care who you are. You can be I've thought about this, like Steve Jobs, or life is hard at times. And life is hard for everyone, that we all go through struggles. I think that's why we're attracted to stories in the first place, because we like to hear about how other people went through and overcame things. But that's another story that we don't really tell that often, is that, life is hard for, like, if you're on this planet, it takes some energy to live, to thrive.
Well, especially with other people on it, getting in the way and putting their judgments and all that.
But then, you know what I mean? But then it's like, if then it becomes like this thing where it becomes, and I know this would be, I don't mean this to say, I know life is harder for some people than others, but then we all get into this, like, you think you've suffered, you know.
I know, and we have that competition where people say, "Oh no, your suffering isn't bad. Mine is." It's like we're competing to who can suffer the most. And it's like, who's winning that prize? I don't want to.
My mother is winning it, actually. You don't know how much that woman has suffered.
But actually, guys, I have to jump off. I have a coaching call to do in a couple of minutes. I need to prepare for.
Cool.
Thanks for
Yeah, I'll
joining
come in a few minutes too. I haven't actually. It's time for me to. It's so good to see you, Shoshana.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Good to meet you both.
It was just a quick, let's get together, whoever wants to show up. Bye, everyone.